You know, we get a lot of folks on this show that are that run companies and things of that nature, and that relationship between CEO and COO or CFO even, you find that certain folks tick a certain way.
Yeah.
And, you know, oftentimes the person who is the founder, the entrepreneur, or the CEO in the organization, it's got a little crazy in them. Like it's just, or her, you know, they're just kind of, they're the somewhat well operating or high performing artist, you know, that is doing this thing. But you always need a great second to keep you in line and say, hey, the budget, you're spending a little too much. And the way you say it, right? It's the way that you approach that artist in that moment of just sheer chaos.
Yeah, and that's being in a rally car, right? Like the way that a co-driver delivers the note impacts the way the driver drives, right? Like if they're screaming at you that you're breaking the car, you're going to be driving a little bit more tense than if they speak to you in a soothing podcast kind of voice, right?
Yeah,
like
that's right.
And that's the same thing as it's a team that has to absolutely communicate really, really well, because you've got the, you know, driver doing crazy shit and you got the co-driver trying to facilitate them doing crazy shit within the limits, right?
Yeah. Talk to me about rally, and, you know, folks have, I think, probably have an idea of, okay, race tracks. Are we talking about a dirt circle? What are we talking about? Can you kind of go through the gambit of the different type of courses a rally car might see?
Yeah. So, I mean, anywhere from, like, if you're doing like there's two kinds of rallycross. There's the rallycross like you would see Nitro rallycross, where it is a circuit and it's wheel to wheel. That's a lot more common in Europe to do rallycross, but Nitro does it in the US. There used to be like ARX and things like that. That's less common here to do wheel to wheel. It's typically going to be one car on course. At the more like local grassroots level, you'll have another thing called rallycross, which has nothing to do with like Nitro style rallycross, which is just basically stock cars in a field with cones.
Okay.
No roll cages. They might be on stock suspension, stock brakes, stock tires, all that. And it's just basically grassroots. Like it's autocross on dirt. And that's usually going to be a loop. Like it'll be a series of corners that loop back on each other. And
You're
then,
doing it for time.
Yeah, always for time. Rally is all about you against time, right? Like you're generally not going to be passing people in rally. It can happen. You can catch up to people and end up passing, but by and large, it's you versus the clock and it's you versus yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I say you, meaning you and the co-driver typically, but rallycross is typically no co-driver required. The next step up from there would be rally sprint, which is what you saw back in February, March, something like that.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff we run, which is co-driver optional, roll cage absolutely required, point to point, but on a closed track, one lap, right? So we're not doing a series of laps looping back on each other. It's from a start to a finish, and it's for time. And that's kind of the middle rally sprint level. It's shorter stages, less logistical nightmare than doing the full Monty, like going to a stage rally. And then above that is, of course, full stage rally. And that's where you absolutely have to have a co-driver, absolutely have to have a roll cage. You're going to be towing cars, 14, 16, 20 hours across the country, massive amounts of logistics, need a whole ass team to do it. And that's, again, going to be point to point, but at a much larger scale. And then it brings the next layer to the question you asked earlier about what makes rally unique. And that's that the roads, the cars have to be road legal. They have to pass inspection. They have to have registration stickers, and they have to be driven on public roads with normal ass cars, because the race stages are just like closed down fire roads.
Yeah.
And to get from one to the service park or to the next stage, you have to drive on public roads in traffic and obey safety laws. And sometimes, there's a bit of fudge factor there as far as like how that's all handled, but they have to be road legal, and they have to drive like you're not going to see an F1 car driving down I-35, but if we had a rally in Austin, like a proper stage rally, you would see race cars driving down I-35 trying to get to their next stage.
No, that's right.
It's so wild.
It's wild. And for just to even paint a further picture on it, kind of what Rob is talking about is, imagine a race where you're racing down 35 and then you're coming downtown Austin and then you're peeling off onto the trails in Lady Bird Lake, which is not an authorized track.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're so being able to have that dynamic flow within the race also just creates a lot more interesting. And it's everywhere, right? I mean, you're talking about forest, mountain environments, flat environments, fields of, the Midwest, wherever you might be,
Yep.
and then all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much bigger worldwide than it is in the United States. The United States, it basically occurs everywhere that there's public land and fire roads, which means not Texas, because we have neither.
Yeah, that's right.
But generally speaking, yeah, it's got to be on. It can be on tarmac, it can be on gravel, it can be on dirt, it can be on all kinds of stuff, and it can vary on the same stage. So we speak about stages rather than tracks, right? So a track would be a loop, and rally does occasionally run on loops. So
Yeah.
a super special stage in like the World Rally Championship would be like potentially a closed arena that would be run on a loop. But generally speaking, we'll talk about race stages, which is the point to point, and that's going to be a public road that's been temporarily closed down to run that fast bit. And then there's transits, which is the slow part where you're driving in traffic. So the race stage is, of course, not with traffic. It's just race cars on a closed course. But then when you finish that and you want to get to the next one, that's when you're driving with your rally car with, full manual brakes and, fire suit and everything out to the next race stage.
And wherever you're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a scrappy sport. Before we get into, and you're alluding to it, I want to definitely get into the culture of the sport and the people, because it is different. And from my observations, one that's a lot more approachable than folks would think. But before that, talk to me about your role as head instructor. I think that, general manager in any industry, in any company, means the guy who does everything all the time and ensures, the safety and success of day-to-day operations for a company. Yep. But the head instructor position is this head teacher guru about, and also helping the other instructors around. Tell me a little bit more about that role and how you help clients and up-and-coming instructors.
Yeah, so it is a lot about basically coaching the coaches, right? So I try to be as much of a mentor as I can to kind of lead by example, but also do direct coaching. So watching what they're doing, giving them feedback on how they communicate ideas and concepts, coming up with new like metaphors and things like that to help get the ideas across. And then just asking like the other coaches, what struggles are you having? Like how did things go with that client? Is there any particular struggle you had with them in the car? Like they might say, yeah, I could not get their hands to calm down. And if I'm here on the same day with them, which I try to be as much as possible, they're supposed to call me in that situation, right? If they hit a roadblock with a student, just bring me in. I'll see if I can diagnose it, and then we talk about what I found that maybe they didn't see, or I might come out and be like, yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on there either. Let's talk about it and let's diagnose it together, right? So it's a big part of it is kind of my goal is to lead in the culture of how we communicate with each other as instructors, how we interface with the clients, how we talk to them, how we just how we relate to them, really. And I try to not have it be a top down. Like Andy, who's out there doing the rally experience right now, like learn a ton from that dude. Like you will never meet somebody who can become fast friends with somebody the way that Andy can. I don't have that skill. But I can watch Andy and I can see what he does differently than I do that allows him to connect in a way that I don't know how to. And I can learn it and I can help share it. And that's, I think, my role as head instructor is to help our team develop that and have all of our instructors' strengths shine and learn from each other.